is this imposing figure behind me? That, my friends, is Otto von Bismarck, German extraordinaire and one of the heroes of modern German history. A political statesman. He was not a Kaiser or king. He was not of the royal lineage, but he, even though not a king, dominated German affairs and European affairs for virtually the whole back half of the 19th century. From the 1860s into the 1890s, this guy was the man who shaped everything going down in Europe. And again, he is kind of a hero in today's Germany. Why so? Well, kind of think of Otto von Bismarck as a little bit of George Washington, a little bit of Winston Churchill, maybe even a little bit of Ronald Reagan and Dwight Eisenhower all rolled up into one. He just didn't shape national affairs in Germany and unify a country. He then made Germany to such a strong power that it affected all of Europe and, of course, thus the world. Now, he is considered the founder of the modern German Empire, which I always say is kind of the forerunner of the modern German state. So he really is the founder of modern Germany as we know it today. Before his time, for hundreds of years, there was this place called Germany, kind of. There was definitely German peoples, but it was mostly kingdoms, small kingdoms and fiefdoms all over the area that we call now northern Germany and all across the Baltic. But it was never a unified single whole, a sovereign state with a national identity that we think of it as in today's world. That all started to change, and people in the past had tried, by the way, to unify Germany to a single powerful entity, but they all kind of failed. But it was this guy as basically the prime minister, prime foreign minister of the Kingdom of Prussia. He was a Prussian, and a lot of people get confused because they're like, Prussia, is that Russia with a P? No. Prussia was a kingdom, the most powerful, biggest kingdom in northern Germany for hundreds of years, that as we got closer and closer into the modern era became bigger and even more powerful. So the state of Prussia, the Kingdom of Prussia, was the most powerful entity within what's going to be called Germany. And this guy, not a Kaiser, not a king, a minister, started to slowly, because he was such a skillful and pragmatic and real awesome politician slash bureaucratic dude, he slowly started to consolidate this power in northern Germany for the state of Prussia by making alliances and maybe threats and maybe this and maybe that to pull together northern German kingdoms all under a kind of single German Confederation umbrella. He did that from the 1862 to 1873 is when he officially was the Prime Minister of Prussia. And then by 1871, they had enough impetus, enough collective energy to really call this place a state of Germany. And when that happened, he became Germany's first chancellor. That's right, Germany still has chancellors to this day, and Otto von Bismarck was the very first one under a single unified Germany. Okay, well, how'd that happen? Quickly, just quickly with some history. He was Prime Minister of Prussia, and under that job title, he did do a lot of political wrangling to unify the North, but then he started to do a lot more things across Europe that changed Germany's fate. Particularly in 1863, he challenged the Danes, Denmark, the Danish, to grab a couple of territories. It wasn't even a full-on war. It was kind of some political intrigue he had with the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and said, yeah, we think this territory is ours. And he actually grabbed Schleswig and Holstein, two different regions that we're actually in right now here in Hamburg. Hamburg is a state of its own, but these are two German states that are around us up here in Western Germany. He grabbed those and pulled them into the empire, but that wasn't enough. He felt that Austria-Hungary was the powerful empire in Europe at the time, in continental Europe, and that perhaps they were going to be challenging to a German unification and a challenge to future German power. So he provoked a war with the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1865, which, to the surprise of everybody, the Prussians handily defeated the Austrians, thus setting the stage that Germany was the rising power, and Austro-Hungary was starting to be sidelined at the time. He thus was ensuring no future Austrian input or influence into what was going to become the German Empire. But even that wasn't enough, because the other major power in Europe at the time was the French. He wanted to sideline the Frenchies out of political influence in Germany as well. So in 1870, he provoked a fight with the Frenchies, which apparently didn't used to be a hard thing to do. This is before they used to surrender all the time. Think Napoleon, Napoleonic Wars, and all this other stuff. And again, it was Napoleon and the Napoleonic Wars that the Germans felt threatened by. They're like, hey, those Frenchies are crazy over there. So Otto von Bismarck said, well, let's go ahead and challenge them now. And this was to do a couple different things. to kind of sideline the French out of German affairs, but also southern German states, think Bavaria and other places down there, they had never joined this Northern Confederation. The southern Germans never considered themselves part of this unified Germany yet. So in picking a fight with the Frenchies, Bismarck did a couple things. Sidelined the French out of German politics, but also basically scared the sweet bejesus out of those southern states so that they would think, oh my gosh, if we don't join up with the Northern Confederation, the Frenchies are going to come get us and absorb us into France, and we don't want that. Who wants that ever? So he actually scared them into joining what then in 1871 becomes a unified Germany. So 1870 to 71 was the Franco-Prussian War, and that is at the end tail of that, sidelined the Frenchies, he's already sidelined the Austrians, he's already grabbed some territory from Denmark, and now, 1871, we have a unified republic, a state, a Reich that is called Germany. And you often hear that term Reich because everybody thinks of, oh, the Third Reich, Hitler. Reich means empire, a land, a state as we think of it in today's world. And Bismarck would be credited with basically the Second Reich of Germany. The First Reich would have been under the Holy Roman Empire. They were kind of a unified political whole under the Holy Roman Empire from like 800 AD for like 1,000 years. It's under Bismarck, under the true unification of Germany as we recognize it and see it today, would have been considered the Second Reich, the Second Estate, this powerful entity that would then go on to be a major power player in Europe right on up to this day. Now, Bismarck, because he was so powerful and such a good statesman, did really lead all of Germany during this whole back half of the 19th century. He was the man. That's why he is beloved in German society. He is a hero of German history. This is, behind me, the largest monument to Bismarck in the world, but it's not the only one. There are hundreds, I believe, across Germany and other parts of the planet dedicated to this dude because, again, it's not just that he's important to the Germans, but by unifying Germany, his legacy became, one, to unify this state that we all recognize in today's world as, wow, a major power player. But also, because he was such a deft statesman, he essentially made Germany into the power core of Europe, sidelining these other big empires, which in turn created a peace. World War I didn't happen until 1914. Bismarck himself was fired in 1890. This king came into power, Kaiser, came into power in Germany. I think it was Wilhelm II. He was a buffoon who was looking upon the success of Germany at that time and was saying, oh, we should become more powerful, we should become more militarily oriented, we should take over all of Europe. Yeah, that's a theme played out with Hitler in the Nazi regime as well a few decades later. And Otto von Bismarck said, nine, we're doing fine. We should keep the peace, and we should be the political deft craftsmen and political players that we are, because that's what's going to be best for Germany. And the Kaiser Wilhelm II didn't like that, so he fired Otto von Bismarck, much to the chagrin of everyone in Germany. And that's how the story played out. He unified this. Bismarck is credited, not any king, Bismarck is credited with the unification of Germany, keeping the peace across Europe because Germany was such a power player who didn't want any more wars after they consolidated the territory they wanted, and kept the peace right on up until Bismarck died in 1898 and things started to fall apart, and then you get World War I in 1914. Thus, this man, a titanic power player of the 19th century, not just for Germany, not just for Europe, but the entire world. Biggest monument dedicated to him is right here behind me in Hamburg. He was actually born, I believe, out in the outskirts of Berlin, kind of always the political capital of Germany. But there are monuments to him across this entire great state, and indeed, because of great figures like Otto von Bismarck, Germany is to this day the richest country in Europe. It will retain that position for some time to come, and it is a world power player in all things economic and political, a situation which must make Otto von Bismarck awfully proud even in his grave today.